here we are,
Here we are.
right?
So, welcome everybody, and welcome me because I'm the last person on the call, I think.
But you're here.
Thank you for getting things going, Beth. All right. So, guys, we're going to talk about one of the most remarked upon things that we include in our leadership trainings and our coach trainings, something we call the manager's toolbox. And it has three roles that are also skills that we train people on. And there's some confusion about when to use them, how to use them, but they're all three of them are important. And one is no more important than the other, and they have specific times they are to be used. So Beth, do you want to add to that at all?
Well, I was doing the way this particular framework came out was I was doing a workshop with leaders, and they were so confused about, well, when do I deploy which tool and which are the primary tools that I use? And so I quickly drew this grid up on the board and we kind of walked through it, and people had such a huge reaction to it that Sasha and Andrea and I sat down and turned it into an actual tool that we teach folks in all of our workshops that are for managers. So we decided that this is one of the key components that we really want to share with people, because when we present it, there's so much energy and so many questions. And in the feedback forms, people are like, oh my gosh, thank you for explaining that to us so clearly, so succinctly. I never really thought about it in that way. So we love it, and people we work with love it. And so we're hoping you also love it too. So that's it.
Okay, so shall we launch into the tools?
We shall.
We shall. All right. So there are three tools. I'll name the tools off right now. There's a tool called managing, which is also it's a role. People get the title of manager, but there's a skill associated with it, which is actual managing. There's mentoring, and then there's coaching, right? So they're all three distinct, and they're used in different contexts. So I'll start talking a little bit about the managing skill. And so managing is a skill that is much maligned. It's something like you associate it with dominance, with control, with telling people what to do. But managing is an important skill in that it ties what your team and what your people are doing back to the most important objectives of your organization or your company. There's a buzzword that is well, that's not a buzzword. It's an acronym that is outcomes and key results. So managing is all about outcomes and key results, the things that help move your company forward, the thing that makes your business hum. This is what managing is about. So it's very important that as a manager, you understand what it is that your team is doing to connect to those key outcomes and results. So when you talk to your staff, you're telling them, this is where we need to go. This is the bar. This is what we need to achieve. These are the behaviors we need to exhibit. These are, the things that make us all work together as an organization. These are actual, measurable, objective, real world, and in most cases, inarguable facts of business that you have to work with. So this is what managing is about. It's about empirical, real world, objective things that you need to accomplish. Beth, do you want to add anything to that?
For me, when you're wearing this hat, the hat of the manager, the mindset is very much the buck stops here. I'm going to take the collective work of my team, the tasks we got done, the goals we accomplished, and how they're going to feed into the overall objections of the organization, This is when the manager or the person who's leading the team sits with their manager, supervisor, leader, executive team, leadership team. And the question is, what did you get done? How did your team support us? And this is where the manager can talk about, as Sasha said, those outcomes, right? Those key measures. This is what we did. The challenge is that many times the person who's in this role, in this hot seat, in the buck stops here mentality, gets hooked into believing that control and dominance is the biggest part of their job and the way that they're going to get this fulfilled. Yes, Kristen, I wanted to say this. For people who are on the call for the first time, this time, at the end, you'll get the link, or sometime Andrea will pop in the link here, and you'll be able to go there to probably tomorrow, and there will be a handout there that you can download that you can take away with you on this. Yes, because we want you to be present for the conversation, take a few notes, but we don't want you to focus so much on trying to capture the information in writing that it's not flowing over you and allowing you to be present. Thanks for asking, Kirsten. Thanks for asking. I meant to say that and I forgot. Yeah. So this is really that goal achievement, behavioral norms, and tying outcomes back to the organization's aspirations. Mm-hmm. This is the place where sometimes you have to be the supervisor. Sometimes you have to be the top-down person, but we're going to talk about the other two hats or roles that you need to deploy that are going to help make that less about pushing the river and more about empowering the people.
Right. I would like to add to the role of manager to shift it away from so much controlling an outcome as to showing where you need to be and having a bead on where your team is in relation to that. Mm-hmm. If you're performing, you're delivering appropriately to what the goals are. You may be exceeding that. It's like not only are you hitting the goal, you're somehow changing it so that you're actually pushing things even more, that you're getting an even better, more intelligent, more creative result. Or you may be underperforming. You are not you're not measuring up to that. This isn't really about opinions. This is about, cause and effect. This is where we're supposed to be, and this is where we are in relation to that. I know you guys can't see my hand. Here's my hand. So that is the skill of manager. It's about measuring reality and matching up your team to what the goals and outcomes are, having a very clear idea of what those are and how your team is performing in relation to that.
Can I build on that for 1 minute?
You can.
Thank you, Sasha. If you are managing a team, running a team, whatever the case, whatever the term you use, leading, supervising, and you are not talking about the goals of the organization over and over and over again. If you do not have a concrete understanding of what's our mission, right? What's our overarching goal, be you corporate, government, or nonprofit? What's the overarching goal of the company? What are the 3 to 5 ways that leadership has determined the benchmarks we're going to hit to get there? And if you're not interpreting that back to your team and using that as you're in the role of manager, making sure that people can talk comfortably. Well, why do we need to implement this new database? Why do we need to put this new protocol in place? Why do I need to align with this piece? Because it is going to help us achieve the goal of improving customer service by percent, retaining clients by such and such a percent, gaining so many new donors in this year, whatever the case is. If you're not using that in your language to tie back to your people, you are probably not being as effective in the manager role as you could.
And the additional benefit of this is that it is a sharp knife for cutting out unimportant work.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about low priority work. I don't think anybody should work on anything that's a low priority. If it's a low priority, it's like, why are you working on a low priority thing? Everything you're working on needs to tie back to what your company is doing in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a great way of cutting out work that is not going anywhere, that is just filling time, using resources, and probably dumbing down your team while you're at it. Nobody wants that. Okay, so Beth, shall we move on to the next tool?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Next one is mentoring. Mentoring. So mentoring, I will say this up front. Beth is my mentor. She has been my mentor for years. And so she is the person who when I was a very junior person in coaching, I went to her and I asked her, I said, how do you handle this? How do you approach this? You know, how did you develop your business model? I went to her to hear how she did it, because she was somebody who represented success to me. And so she shared her path, she shared her pitfalls, she gave me input and advice about my own business model. And that was invaluable guidance, and it helped me make important decisions, including the decision when to leave my corporate job and to actually go full-time with coaching and training work. So, you know, Beth's advice and presence in my life has been very valuable. And so as a mentor, she shared the path that she walked. So when we talk about mentoring, we're talking about, this is how I did it. And it's somebody else's view of the world, how they got there, the problems they've encountered. And in some cases, introducing you to helpful people and resources, you know, books that you've read, lectures you've listened to, and even connections to other people who can teach you more or help you along the way. That is the role of the mentor. It's, you know, something that's minted in mythology. Mentor was a character out of the Odyssey. He was actually the embodiment of Athena. So when you think of it, of the mentor is the wise person who can help show you the way. So that is mentoring. Beth, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, first I want to say thank you, Sasha. And, you know, mentoring is something that, depending on the area and the topic, people can surprise you that they can be your mentors. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a hierarchical relationship. But in this case, we're talking about the manager's toolbox. So we're talking about, how do you mentor your people? What I see as one of the pitfalls when the mentoring muscle is overflexed or used too much is that managers get super focused on creating a bunch of people who do the work in the exact same way that they do the work. And they get hooked into, my way is the right way. And so when somebody is using their unique strengths, their unique genius, their unique skill set, their unique way of communicating, which is inherent to them, right, and effective, to solve a problem or to do work or to complete a task, some managers who are overflexing the mentoring skill get a little panicky because it's not being done exactly the way I would do it, right? Now, there's places where doing it exactly the way you do it is critical, and that takes you back to the manager role. But the mentoring role is really useful for, oh, I see you're struggling here. Let me tell you what I did. And then you can take what you want from what I've learned and apply it in ways that work for you. it's particularly great for navigating office politics, right? Oh, I have to go over to accounting and talk about this, and I'm really nervous and I don't know how to deal with the system and this person and everything. Oh, I hear you. I ran into that too. This is what I learned about the best way to navigate that. Let me tell you, and then you can apply it in the way that you want. That's mentoring. As Sasha said, it truly is saying, this is the path that I walked. If there's anything here for you that feels valuable, please take it and use it. That's mentoring.
That's mentoring. Yeah. Okay. Last tool, coaching. Okay. So I've said it, I say it all the time. Managers are constantly being exhorted to, quote, coach their staff, and they are never given any support on how to do that, what coaching looks like, what coaching, is supposed to accomplish. They just say you're supposed to coach them.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say this, that coaching is all about the other person. And there are a few things that need to be present to coach another person. One, you have to know and believe that the person that you're coaching is capable of the thing they're being coached around, right? So it's about their own self-efficacy, it's about their own capabilities, and it's about their own willingness. They need to be capable and willing to make a change, right? So coaching is always about changing things. So when you coach somebody, you believe that they are capable of doing it, and that you also know they're signaling to you that they're willing to do it. And it's always about the other person's solutions, their own ideas, how they would approach a problem. Your role as a coach is to ask them really good questions to help bring that out of them, to help them tap into their inner resourcefulness, to see the way forward through their own lens by asking them questions and not letting them flop around too much, like, I don't know what to do, tell me what to do, just give me the answer. If they're capable and they are able, press them to find the answer on their own. It could be that they're just not willing, right? And if they're not willing, the conversation is going to go nowhere. You cannot coach a person into self-efficacy if they're not willing to do it. So the willingness on their part must be present. You can try, but if they don't pick it up, it's just not going to, you just have to know when to stop. But coaching is always about the other person, about their genius, their resourcefulness, about building self-efficacy, and about being the person in the driver's seat when a solution is to be created. Beth, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is a really important topic. We do training and we do workshops to help people, managers, build their coaching skills. And frequently, when we walk in the door, when we show up for this or doing it online, people tell us, oh, I use coaching all the time, right? And when we ask, oh, share with me your most recent experience coaching someone, and they say, well, my employee was struggling with X. I sat down with them. I told them, where I thought they should go with it, what I thought it should look like, how I thought it should be done. And, I asked them a few questions around that. And then I, sent them on their way with their assignment. Oh, that's fascinating, I always say. Because what a coaching scenario would look like in that case would be that as the coach, you have no agenda for the person. They are presenting a challenge to you, that they are having a problem that they are trying to solve, a change that they are trying to make. If there is not a desire to make a change, it is not a coaching session, right? If you think they should make a change and they are not invested in it, that's managing, right? If a change needs to be made for them to achieve the goals of their job and perform the tasks, you're in a managing role. You're holding them accountable to that. You're telling them what the line in the sand is and what has to be done. But if you are truly coaching them, they are indicating that they see a reason to change. Oh, Sasha, I noticed that when we get on a call with the client, you jump into this behavior. This is not true. I'm making this up. You jump into this behavior of too much telling, too much telling. Oh, I do? Huh, I hadn't noticed that. It's something that I'm noticing I'm picking up on. Wow, thank you for telling me. Could you work with me to help me change that behavior? Oh, I absolutely can. We could do a coaching session on that if you're open to that. Coaching is with permission and understanding that that is what's happening. And as the coach, you have a belief. This is the thing that I think a lot of people don't know, one of the nuances of it. You are holding a belief that this person is capable. You heard Sasha talk about that. That they have the answer inside them. The other piece about coaching is that you need to accept what the coachee is telling you is true because it's true for them, and they are the ones that know what risks they're willing to take and what actions they're willing to take and what consequences they are willing to live with. So there's a bunch of great coaching questions that help you get into that and help you discern that and get the person thinking about that without going into telling. And so that's some fabulous work and information for you to do and some looking at. Teaching managers how to coach is something that we do, and it's much more than what's going to happen on this. But I just want to help people be aware that you may think you're coaching when you sit down and have a session and you do all the talking, but you're not necessarily coaching in that moment. You're either mentoring or managing.
That's something that when we do our live trainings with teams, we ask them to bring their real world critical problems, and we use the tools to solve the problems. You know, they solve the problems. We teach them how to do coaching, and we teach them about the other tools. And through this learning experience, they're able to actually resolve the problems that their longstanding problems, their critical problems. So it's just a very effective way to learn. And so this is, you know, I want to say that, you know, when you talk about coaching any of these things, it's a lot easier to coach somebody if there is actually some skin in the game, if there is a real thing that needs to be solved. It's very hard to coach people on stuff that's low stakes.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So, Sasha, do we want to talk about how to move between these quickly? How to navigate between these three?
Yeah, I think we should definitely talk about that. So when you sit down with somebody to talk about anything, you're going to use these skills interchangeably. They're not, you're not just going to sit down and say like, okay, we're doing only managing. We're only talking about metrics and looking at charts, or I'm only going to talk to you about policy today. No, you're going to have opportunities to use these things in a single conversation. And the questions, you know, it's like we actually have it summed up in 3 phrases. This is what needs to be done. This is how I've done it. And the question, how might you go about doing this? Those are the cues you can use within a conversation to know when it's time to use those tools. In a conversation, you can talk about what the objectives and key results are. You can talk about your own experience, which is mentoring. Like when I was faced with this problem before, this is how I approached it. And, you know, when you talk to your team, you could say, give me your ideas about how you would approach this. And by the way, when you're talking to a team and you want their solutions, I would hold back on the mentoring part, hold back your own, how you've done it before. There is a strong tendency for teams to hear that sort of thing and read it as this is what an expectation is. We're expected to do what the boss did, or whatever. When you actually do want their creativity and thoughts. So those are the three key questions you can ask yourself. Am I telling them what is? Am I sharing what I've done? Or am I asking what they would do? Those are the three triggers for you to know when to change tools. Beth, do you want to expand on that?
Well, I just think sometimes it's going to be nuanced and you're going to know that you're moving between them. So you might be giving someone an assignment. So say a big project comes down from above, right? And so you're managing in that you're indicating the assignment needs to be done. It needs to be done by X amount of days. Who's going to do the different pieces of it? There might be some mentoring in there in terms of, I would begin here and I would approach it this way, and these are the components, and this is the journey that I've walked. Maybe you need to get information from other stakeholders, and so you want to indicate that. But then there may be some small pieces that you want to go into coaching mode on because you want to give your team, individuals on your team, the opportunity within a space to be able to build their self-efficacy, to build their own approaches, to use their strengths. And so you might say, hey, Sasha, on this piece, what do you think your approach might be? How do you think you might tackle this? And give them the opportunity to talk through that. In the coaching component, it's really important at the end to follow up with a question around, okay, based on everything we talked about, tell me what might your next step be? What are you going to do when you leave here? How am I going to know that you took that step? How are you going to report that back to me? The thing that I love the most about the coaching piece is it takes so much burden and responsibility off you as the manager, because you are pushing that responsibility over to the person to be accountable, to report back, to indicate what the steps are. You're helping them to do the thinking so you don't have to on that piece. And I just think that is just one of the best kept secrets of managing. You also need to use discernment for when people are ready for that and when it's going to be effective. And for you as well, what risks you're willing to take with outcomes, and be really clear on that. Do not make coaching into a guessing game where you have the person tap dancing trying to guess the right answer to give back to you in a coaching session. That is not coaching.
Yeah. There's an adage about hiring. They say you should hire people who are smarter than yourself. If you're going through the trouble to hire people who are smarter than yourself, you definitely want to do coaching because you're going to leave all that extra capability and intelligence on the table unless you ask them to bring it out for you. That is how you leverage that extra intelligence and creativity. Coaching is the way.
So we've got some great questions that people submitted, and you can also submit questions in the chat. I'm going to step away for 1 minute because the person in the next office is being really loud on the phone and I want to shut the door.
Okay. As Beth said, if you have any questions and you want to have us address them, please, put them in the chat, and I will be reading the questions out, and Beth and I will both be replying to them.
Okay, I'm back.
And she's back.
It was so in my head. I couldn't, I kept texting, shut the door, shut the door, shut the door. But no response.
Okay, you ready?
I am so ready.
All right. First question is how to manage staff who want to talk over you when you're working to guide or mentor them.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's a drag.
It is a drag. It is a drag. You know, my question, so what were the two things they said when you were trying to guide or mentor them?
Guide / mentor them. They want to talk over you.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hear that, I imagine that you, the manager, are trying to offer them some input, and before you're able to finish your sentence, they are jumping in to stop you or give their point of view or to say something without letting you finish what it is that you had to say.
And I'm wondering about the tenor of what they're jumping in with, because if it's defensive, if they want to jump in to defend or rebut what you're saying, that for me is when I want to deploy one of the most powerful tools that I think is available to everybody, which is curiosity, right? So taking a pause, taking a breather. My guess would be if they are jumping in to talk over you, which is one of the fight, flight, or freeze patterns, they are something that you are saying is feeling threatening to them on an ego level, right? Which is reputation, questioning skills and expertise, all of those types of things. So the only person you can manage is yourself. That is one of the navigating challenging dialogue tenets. The only person I can manage is myself. I would look at, are you getting into a push thing over right and wrong, dominance, power, and control? Or is there an opportunity for you to take a breath, pause, and go into curiosity? One of my favorite curious questions is, I'm wondering what's happening for you right now. We're talking about this, and you seem to be wanting to explain a lot about it. So I'm just curious what's going on for you right now in this moment. Yeah. And I would shift the tenor of the conversation from trying to get them to listen to you, get them to do what you say, because you can't win that. You're not going to win that. Even if they comply, even if they sit quietly, they're going to go back to the desk and do whatever the hell they wanted to do anyway. Because that's the flight part of fight or flight. Yes, I hear you. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to my desk and do whatever the hell I wanted anyway.
Now, if you're a employee actually is just a very excitable person, like they're just so excited and they just can't wait to talk. What I do and what Beth and I do for each other is that when we have something that we need to share a full thought, we say right up front, I says, I need to tell you something and I need for you simply to sit and listen until I tell you completely. The other tool that we use is, when a person starts to jump in and just say, I just need a moment, I am almost finished. And to just use those non-defensively. People get very excited and they just want to talk. Some people are talkers. They want to talk over you. So those polite, exactly, using your hand, those polite things that you can say up front help set the tenor for what it is that you want to say. But if the person is going into defensiveness, like Beth said, take a beat, and just ask them what's going on for them. I'm offering this to you. I'm curious what's happening because you seem to want to jump in and talk over me. You don't have to make them wrong or bad or anything like that. You can just ask them where they are emotionally, because that is, you can bet that they are starting to get into fight or flight.
Particularly if it's a repeat pattern of behavior. When I'm working with folks, when I'm coaching, consulting, mentoring, when we're doing our MAP, Manager Accelerator program, I'm always looking for what are the patterns of behavior that keep showing up. So if it's one time you're having one interaction about, whatever, layoffs, budget cuts, a new project that's high stakes that has people a little on the edge, and somebody's interrupting you and it's abnormal behavior, that's different than a repeated pattern. So getting to the bottom of, I'm curious what's happening for you right now, because I've noticed this pattern of behavior that when things get tense, you try and talk over me. There also might be some really good feedback for you in that, as well as for them, and they may not be aware that there is a pattern of behavior. Great. Thanks, Sasha.
Okay, so this isn't so much a question as it's a comment, as like, I'm interested in the framework, I'm a new manager. So to the asker of that question, I want to say that we have a lot of free resources on the website that reiterate what it is that Beth and I are saying. We also offer a lot of trainings that help go into these tools in depth. So if what you hear on this call is continuing to pique your interest, I invite you to go and check out the things that we have for free on our website, or to have a conversation with Beth and I how we can bring it to your workplace. Beth, do you want to add to that?
There will also be a handout. There will also be a handout that you can
access.
access.
And there will be a handout.
Mm-hmm. Andrea put the link in the chat, so you'll get it.
Yeah, that'll be up by tomorrow for sure. And it also has it'll have an illustration of the framework for you. Mm-hmm. What is the most important tool in a toolbox? That's a mind bender.
That is a mind bender, because for me, the most important tool is curiosity and pause and the willingness to shift and transition between all of the tools as needed. And part of curiosity is asking, like, what do you need from me right now? Would you like to use your skills and expertise to solve this through some coaching? Or do you want to know how I solved it in the past when I had to face it? Like, and for you to use your discernment to figure out if your employee is like off the charts in complete and total panic mode, and they cannot figure out how to get from A to B, and they're like frozen, that's not coaching. That's not a coaching scenario. So relieving some of the pressure by asking and building a culture, right? We talk all the time about a coaching culture, building an intentional coaching culture within your organization, where people are familiar with the tools, so they can actually say in advance, you know what, Sasha, I need you to let me know how you solved this, and then I'll go back and apply some of that on my own versus coaching right now. So I think for me, none of these are the most important tool. What's most important is being so versed in them and so comfortable with each of them yourself that you can transition with ease and you can deploy them with ease. That's the most important tool in your toolbox.
Yeah, the most important tool is the one that can help you in the moment that you actually have the skill to use. So you can have the most fancy, framework, but if you have not practiced it, if you have not developed the skill to use it, it is not going to come and help you. I have a lot of woodworking tools in my garage, and I'll tell you about 50% of them I have absolutely no skill with. So I go back to using the ones that I have over and over again, and I use them all right. but I do not, if I need to use some of those other ones, they're just going to mess up and screw up my project. So use the ones that you have skill with that will help you in the moment to solve your problem. That is your most important tool.
I'm not sure if there's anybody on here. Oh, Karen. Karen is on here, and who's been to our managers coaches training. And that training, I mean, we spend maybe it's two or three. I don't know. Andrea's going to be upset at me because I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 days. I think it's 2, right, Sash?
It's a 3-day training. So like
3-day training.
Yeah,
and so
knowledge transfer and practice.
Like the half 3/4 of the first day on content, and then the whole second day and most of the last day is all people practicing coaching each other. So first they see Sasha and I coach each other, then they see Sasha and I coach somebody else in the group, and then people are coaching each other, and then they do a fishbowl coaching where they're up in the front of the room and they're coaching with everybody else watching them, which is what I love about that training, because yeah, Karen says it was amazing. It is. It's one of my favorites to teach, because people are actually getting the opportunity to practice these skills. If you're new to coaching and you want to begin practicing it with your team or your employees or whatever, just kind of be kind about it and let people know that you're trying a new skill, you're practicing a new thing. Be gentle to yourself, because it does take work and practice to get comfortable to be in that curiosity coaching mindset. And it's super easy to slip over into telling people what to do or thinking you know the answer.
Exactly. Okay, we have how to know when to be a mentor or coach and the different techniques. So how to be when to know when to be a mentor or coach. Beth, I think we talked a little bit about this earlier.
I think we kind of got that one out there. If whoever asked that question has a deeper question on that, we are super happy to answer that. So just pop it in the chat. But I feel like that's pretty much the content.
Yeah, I'll just basically say this, is that when you know, mentoring is for when you're sharing the road that you've traveled, and coaching is when you're drawing a person's resourcefulness out. That isn't it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Okay. When asking curious questions, what happens when your staff member refuses to engage and just says, I don't know?
Favorite question.
I don't know.
Sasha, answer this, because you have the perfect follow-up question for I don't know.
Okay, so the question I asked when somebody just like, I don't know. I just said, okay, but what if you did know? This is not a gotcha or anything like that. That is just basically to invite somebody to say what's on their mind, to say what's really on their mind. Maybe they truly don't know. And if they keep on going back to the I don't know thing, I guarantee you they are in panic mode and they are not coachable in that moment. But they may come up with, they may have something that they would like to say, but they're afraid of being wrong, giving you the wrong answer, or saying something that's silly or embarrassing, or maybe something they suspect you don't want to hear. Invite them to say it anyway. This is just a way of inviting people to engage in the conversation. When they say that they don't know, it's because they genuinely don't know, and they're not like leaning into the question, or there is something that they could say but they won't say because of their opinion about the situation.
Be very cautious about the language that you use when you're, all the time, but when you're in the role of the coach. I'm going to tell you a super quick story when this hit home for me. I was a teacher, and way back in the Wayback Machine, I was a high school teacher. And when I was doing my practicum, My student teaching, I was under this teacher in a literature class who like lived and breathed literature. And so she asked this group of really nervous, insecure sophomores, so what do you think was the meaning of the white whale in Moby Dick? And so this one student who I'd never heard talk in the class very tentatively raised her hand and gave her answer, and the teacher immediately said, no. No? Like, no? I didn't see that student raise her hand for the whole rest of the 18 weeks I was in that classroom, because that smacks you down right there and makes you not answer. So be very aware. If you have someone and you say da 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 da, and they say, I just don't know, turning it around and saying, well, what might happen if you did know? If you did know, what might you try? What if you did know? And getting into all of the possibilities without judgment, and making sure you never say, no, that won't work. No, that's not the answer I was looking for. Close, but not really. That's not coaching. That's a guessing game. That's like 50 questions. It's going to shut people down. Trust in a coaching relationship is built one conversation at a time and one action at a time. And it's your responsibility to create the groundwork for that trust. And you can take it away with a simple, no, not really.
So Beth, that winds up our questions.
Yay. Good.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything that came up for them in this, or anything that they want to ask now? You can put it right in the chat. This is a big topic, and it's one of the ones that really is like, here's a spoonful, and there's so much more to talk about on this. So knowing that you might be leaving with more questions and answers. Coaching is a little bit frightening in the beginning because people are scared about the idea that you don't have control, right? You don't get to know where it's going to end up. But once you get practice and skillful in coaching, you begin to understand that not having to know where everything ends up is actually empowers your team to build skills, to build efficacy, to build confidence, and it takes all the mental burden of having to know all the answers off of you. And many, many times, when you are open to outcomes and possibility, you find out that the problem solving that comes through this is more creative, more innovative, and people have more ownership in it than they would with you just telling them what to do next.
Yes, yes. I think we have a question. Okay, what to do with a staff member who just sits there with such a flat affect in one-on-one conversations that you can't get anywhere?
I would be curious. I would, this is what I would do, right? But I've been coaching for a really long time, and I am confident in the coaching process. But for me, I would simply say, Sasha, what I'm noticing is that it appears to me that you have a really flat affect when we are having a conversation. Help me understand what's happening for you right now. Help me understand what that means. Because what you want, what we do so often is we have a bias or a judgment or a belief of what someone else's facial expressions mean or what they're indicating. And every single time that story is about me, right? What that means about me. Many times when I am concentrating deeply on what somebody's saying, I have a very intimidating look about me that I am not even aware about. I look directly into their eyes. I lean forward. I usually have a really intensive look on my face, and I can't tell you how many times in my life people have said, are you mad? I'm like, no, I'm not mad. I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm thinking. I'm processing. So I would just do a super gentle inquiry and say, I am noticing this. Can you help me understand what it means? I think that's really, and that's brave, right? I do that in workshops. When we're doing workshops, sometimes I'll have 20 people in the room and somebody will have a really quizzical or angry, what I am interpreting angry or whatever look on their face. It looks like they think I'm full of crap or they don't agree with me. And I'll just pause and say, can you help me understand what's happening for you right now? 90% of the time it's unrelated to me. So if you're brave enough to hear the answer, then I would ask the question.
Yeah. One-on-one conversations are, they're two-way affairs, right? I mean, it's an opportunity for both parties to ask questions, to share information, to problem solve. It's not just for the manager. It's also, it's ultimately for the person who, both people who are there. So making sure that they have that opening so that they can actually say, like, these meetings aren't working for me. Oh, say more about that. Tell me what you actually expect to get out of this. In your role, as a manager, the manager skill, this is, if you're clear about where it's headed, this is a chance for the person who's reporting to you to perhaps work through some of this stuff. If they're sitting there and they're just kind of like a lump on a log, I'd be so curious about what they were, who they think the conversation is for.
And then know that based on their response, you don't have to fix it in the moment. Yeah. When you ask the question, help me to understand what's happening, you can simply say, thank you for that feedback. I'm going to reflect on that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Another question came through.
I love it.
What to do with a staff member who is so emotionally volatile that they're full of positive energy one day and down in the dumps the next, dragging everyone along with them? Sounds very exciting.
Yes.
You never know what you're going to get.
So that would be a conversation that I would want to have with someone on being aware of the energy that they bring to the room, right? And understanding that energy is contagious. And so that person may or may not realize that they are an energetic leader within that group, and helping them to understand how to modulate their energy for good and how to be aware of their energy when it's bringing the whole team down, because they may not be aware of it. And when we begin working with our people on social and emotional intelligence, that's when you can begin to get into these types of conversations with people, right? But if you're not creating any kind of awareness around social emotional intelligence and how important that is for getting the work done, for being part of a team, for being promoted, for moving into leadership and management, then you don't have a doorway to talk about those kinds of behavioral things. So I would really encourage you to identify ways to talk about when their energy is positive for the team and helping them to see when it is a withdrawal from the team, and asking them coaching questions about how they want to show up, how they want to utilize that. That's my 2 cents. Sasha?
Oh, sorry about that. I thought you were done, Beth. What I was going to say is that One, it's super important to be able to model the behavior, model the behavior that you want. You know, and
Yeah.
that starts with awareness, starting with your own awareness of the energy that you bring to the room. Your employee who seems to have a lot of peaks and valleys, I'd be very curious about what's going on for them, because it is totally possible to be too positive, where your highs are just so high that they are those are disruptive. It's possible for a person who can be just like on such a sunshine high that that's disruptive as well. So without making them wrong, just to find out what's going on, just like, hey, person, I'm very curious. Today you seem to be very up. Is there something that happened, or, you know, that you could share with us what's going on? And to just find out what's going on underneath what's going on under the hood. And to just have those conversations so it's open, that it's out there, instead of everyone creating a story about this person and their peaks and valleys.
This is also a really important place to do some icebreaker work at the beginning of a meeting. Like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, where's your energy today? Or, hey, everybody go around and give the name of a movie or book that depicts the energy you're bringing to the room today. Allowing people to name where they're at without a big long explanation of, you know, my mother-in-law called and blah, 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 and my grocery order didn't come, and my kids drove me nuts, without dragging the whole story in, but just a snippet of saying out loud, my energy is at a 2 today, just allows everybody to not have to ask a lot of questions. And sometimes just allowing the person to speak it out loud gives them what they need to be able to transmute the energy, transform it into a different place that's more productive for the team.
Okay. Well, I don't see any more questions in the forum. And believe it or not, we are 2 minutes under the hour. We did it!
We're doing good on our timekeeping, I think.
Yes, getting better and better.
Yeah. Next week we are having. Are we doing the exciting topic next week, Sasha?
So those of you who have been like following along, we had a topic proposed already, which was how the non-political art of managing up. We are going to revisit that in 3 weeks. This next week, we are going to be doing a session on answering unanswerable questions, which is something that comes up with our clients a lot. So we want to spend some time on that one.
Lots of managers and leaders that we're coaching are having to deal with uncertainty, and employees who are asking them questions there's no other answer to, and so, or no firm answer to. And so we are going to talk about that next week, because I love that topic, and I think we have a great framework that has supported our clients and will hopefully support you. So we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, and we love spending this time with you. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, guys.